Hello, back again on the Top Recap channel. This time I will tell a movies entitled Warfare. Let's get straight into the storyline. Set on November 19th, 2006. The film begins with Navy SEALs watching a video of a girl dancing. They do this to relax because they are about to go on a dangerous mission. Currently, the squad is in a location called Ramadi, Iraq. The Navy SEALs quietly infiltrate a residential area at night to check the situation. Their mission this time is simply to keep an eye on enemy movements. Here, we follow one of the troops who enters a residential house and immediately secures the owner of the house. Seeing that there was a wall at the top door, they broke through it. As it turns out, there were locals hiding behind the wall. However, to comply with the rules of war, the troops protected the civilians. Long story short, the troops took control of the house. They took the owner hostage so that, if caught, the house would not be bombed because they thought there were still civilians. After that, they used the house as a reconnaissance site. Then, we are introduced to the soldiers who are there. The troops are led by a captain named Eric. This team includes Elliot and Frank, who are snipers, Ray, and 3 others. Elliot is assisted by Frank and tasked with monitoring enemy movements from a distance. Meanwhile, Ray served as a communication intermediary with other Navy SEAL troops. Not long after, Elliot saw some suspicious-looking people entering the building in front of them. Here, he always notes and remembers what the people who pass by look like, because anyone can be a threat during war. Meanwhile, the other 2 team members were in charge of contacting the air raid squad if needed at any time. On the other hand, there's Sam, a soldier who they often call lame because he has little experience in the field. He was always in high spirits, not knowing how much danger he was in. At that time, the situation was still safe and under control. There was nothing dangerous yet. In fact, you could say that Eric's troops were in a daze. But even so, they all remained vigilant. Not long after, Elliot saw the movement of several people. One of them seemed to be scouting Eric's troops. In addition, they also heard noises outside. So Eric also asked for help from drones to see the location. However, as they prepared to attack, Eric received news that his troops would not receive air cover. Inevitably, they had to maximize ground attacks. This was a bad sign for Eric as his small army could be slaughtered easily. Moreover, the Iraqi militias were far more numerous and brutal.
Hey, downstairs, keep it fucking secure.
Just as things were starting to calm down, they suddenly heard the sound of Allahu Akbar, which caused the residents to leave the area.
Streets are definitely clear now.
Yeah, I'm tracking.
They say they call on all Muslims for jihad.
Instantly, the place became deserted. However, so far, there had been no movement from the enemy. In fact, Elliot still had time to rest because there was no threat. For a while, Frank took his place to monitor the situation. There, Frank saw 4 people, one of whom was carrying a firearm. Shortly after, several other people also arrived at the location. Functionally, Frank could shoot them all. However, he chose to wait for Elliot's more senior decision. However, when Elliot returned to monitor, they were suddenly attacked.
Frank! Tommy! Elliot! You good? Move, man! Broken it! Move!
Fortunately, Eric and the team managed to survive the attack. Eric immediately called for reinforcements, but it turned out that all units were also under attack. Finally, Eric planned to leave that place with the help of tanks that would soon arrive. Before taking action again, Eric and Ray immediately went to look for Frank and Elliot's sniper equipment that had been left in the house.
That's your kit. Med bag. Thanks, Mac.
After that, they immediately prepared to leave the house and planned to detonate a bomb to distract attention.
Copy. Go, Mac.
Fire the hole!
I got the window!
Then, they prepared to enter the approaching tank. But before that, they calmed down the owner of the house, who was a civilian. Eric and his team then assured the owner that the American soldiers would protect them. After that, Eric organized a strategy so that they could get out safely.
Find out for me whether the tank is going to be left side or right side.
Yes, sir.
How you doing?
Left-hand side, over.
Left-hand side, sir.
As time passed, the situation in the house became increasingly tense. Not long after, Eric's team was informed that the awaited tanks had arrived. They only had 2 minutes to get into it.
2 minutes. 2 minutes.
As a result, Eric and his troops jumped into action.
Smoke out.
Break out!
Go.
Unfortunately, the tank exploded due to a system error. As a result, Sam had to lose one of his legs. Meanwhile, Ray and Eric were still conscious and unharmed because they had not yet entered the tank. Seeing his troops injured made Eric very worried. He also tried to transport the wounded members before the enemy troops arrived. Due to this chaotic situation, they failed to escape. Inevitably, they had to go back into the surveillance house. There, Sam roared in pain because of his severe injuries. Meanwhile, outside, Ray could only stare at Elliot, whose fate was the same as Sam's.
We had a massive ID break. Look, with medical personnel at the front gate of Camp Corregidor. Understand, break. Alpha 1, this is Alpha
2. This is 1. We have taken massive casualties.
At this point, the Navy SEALs had almost no chance of making a comeback. Upon further investigation, it turns out that the explosion came from a bomb in the tank that had an error. Without waiting too long, Eric contacted other units. They asked for help so that they could escape, because if they were trapped for more than an hour, the enemy militia would definitely finish them off. And sure enough, the enemy troops were now outside and attacking Eric's troops nonstop. At the same time, Ray takes care of Sam's wounds and gives him first aid. Here, Eric looks very frustrated with his trapped situation. He is also annoyed with the relief squad, which seems to ignore them. On the other hand, one of the members was assigned to take care of Elliot, who is also seriously injured. Meanwhile, Ray again persuaded other troops to come. At least, they can save Sam and Elliot, who are already helpless.
We have 2 severely wounded. We need another casevac. Over.
Shortly after, they received news that air support would be arriving soon.
Hey, we got air back.
While waiting for reinforcements, Eric, the captain, is getting desperate because he feels unable to protect his troops. Long story short, the air reconnaissance troops reported that many enemies were on top of the building, attacking the reinforcements. The troops were led by Captain Jake. Quickly, they strategized their way to Eric's building while engaging in a firefight with the enemy. Here, Eric, who was traumatized, finally asked Jake to take command and help him evacuate all the members.
Take a knee. I'm gonna need you to run point.
Of course, Jake, as the captain, sympathized as he too had experienced the same trauma.
All right, guys, listen up.
The plan was to call in 2 tanks to evacuate everyone.
Gunners upstairs?
Yeah, outside pocket.
1 will be right, Brad 2 left.
Yes, sir.
Meanwhile, 2 armies were already mobilized on the outside to deal with the endless enemy forces. Initially, Jake was not allowed to evacuate as they had limited tanks. However, Jake insisted on the safety of the soldiers.
Give them the order to send the fucking brats.
Lock it down.
Yes, sir.
Ultimately, the military post was willing to send the remaining 2 tanks as soon as possible, within 10 minutes. Then, to get rid of anything that could potentially interfere with the tank's arrival, Jake immediately commanded the troops outside. At the same time, the two troops fighting the enemy began to get overwhelmed, so they were forced to retreat and enter the building. On the other hand, Eric's troops put Elliot and Sam on the carpet to make evacuating easier. Not long after that, the tank they were waiting for finally arrived. Without wasting time, Jake divided their respective positions in this evacuation.
You two are breaking us out. Yes, sir. Gunners, you'll set up security out on the street.
Master, we are approaching only one at this time.
With great difficulty, they finally managed to get Sam and Elliot into the tank.
On three, two, one. Go!
Then the troops were split into two groups, some in the tank and some on standby in the building. With sensors from above, Jake, who was inside the building, began to evacuate his troops again. He then asked the tank to return to the location and created a disturbance so that the enemy would not approach.
Fire into our building, top deck. Oh!
Eventually, thanks to this strategy, Eric and Jake's troops managed to escape with the tanks. After all the American troops left, the family of the house owner could only watch as their house was destroyed by the war. For them, war was the stupidest way to defend their country, because the victims must be civilians like them. At the end of the film, we are shown the faces of the original Navy SEALs, all of whom returned home safely. However, Elliot and Sam have to live the rest of their lives with disabilities.